Yo, what's up? Hey! And today we're going to be going through my build for the Hatchet and Bow that I've been using for all of my alpha testing that I've been doing for New World. And it primarily focuses on physical crit damage, and it has some AoE, some bleeds, some debuffs, a bunch of different things within it to be able to get the max potential of the physical damage that you'll be doing. If you are looking for a little bit more detail into this build, I've also done a complete write-up using Studio Loot's class builder, so make sure to go like and comment if you have any issues that you find within my build, or comments that may help me out and help everyone out that wants to be doing that crit DPS. No, I am not sponsored by Studio Loot, I just love that they have the option for you to make builds and create content within their website. So let's get into it. So during my alpha test, I've always been drawn to using the Hatchet, obviously due to its insane survivability, gap closer, stun potential. The list kind of goes on off of that, right? You stay alive and you do damage while you're staying alive. But what pairs best with the Hatchet? My opinion, the bow and arrow. So the bow and arrow provides bleed, it provides penetration damage, it provides crit, which is the main focus of this build in general, is to crit. You want your light attacks, your abilities, everything. Crit! There are a few things within this build that may be a little weird for you or you haven't seen before in other builds. Primarily what I've been focused on is creating debuff stacks that create opportunity and openings for you to be able to do your damage, right? So rend being a very big focus to this build, you're gonna wanna be keeping this up as much as possible throughout every single encounter that you get into. But we'll get into that a little bit later in this video. Let's go over the playstyle that I like to use within this build. So mobility within this build is huge. You want to utilize your haste that you get from the bow and hatchet. You want to utilize your dodge roll, your dodge if you're wearing heavier armor, and popping berserk whenever you get in a sticky situation that you can't seem to get out of. Combining these three should allow you to gain distance from mobs when you pull aggro, or to close gaps in PvP situations when you're doing too much damage to an enemy and they decide to evade you. So let's jump in to your attribute breakdown. You'll be primarily focusing on dexterity for your damage output, reducing stamina for dodge and dodge roll, crit potential, crit damage, and a guaranteed crit after dodge at max rank. As for the rest of your points, we will be putting that into constitution or your life juice to gain a 20% to consumables across the board, as well as calculating 10% of your physical armor and adding it to your HP, which at endgame should allow you to receive 1500 to 2000 extra HP. Now that you know a little bit more about the attribute breakdown and the core attributes within this build, let's go into detail about leveling. So as you are leveling, I would strongly recommend to pay attention to the descriptions and details within the gear that you will be receiving. The primary sets of gear that you will be looking for will contain Dex, Dex Con, Con Dex, and Dex Strength. As for defense bonuses, I would pay attention to other MMOs and some common sense around that. If you want something that's a heavier fit for you, go for it. If you think you're taking too much damage, it may be a good fit. If not, there is fun to be had with lower defense gear. Another aspect to leveling is location. Make sure to keep a lookout for those, as well as faction bonuses. That should give you some insights into leveling. Now, let's go into the meat of the meal, the weapon trees. We'll be starting off with everyone's favorite, the Hatchet. It's a fairly standard start to this build, but the primary things that you'll be looking for within this weapon tree are sustain, damage, crit, and haste. Rend is also a key to this build. 20% vulnerability of incoming damage to the enemy affected. It creates an open wound for all party members to gain 20% damage on hit, so keep it up as much as possible. Starting off with levels 1 through 3, you'll be focusing on the berserk tree. You'll be starting out with berserk, on the hunt, and berserk refresh for the passive heal. This will keep you in the fight when you are going through leveling. At level 4, you will be grabbing Raging Torrent. This will help give you a little bit more play outside of light and heavy attacks that you'll be spamming, as well as boost your overall DPS while Berserk is on cooldown. From levels 5 to 8, you've got a few options, so I'll give you some recommendations. You'll be starting with Fortify Strikes, Accumulated Power, Against All Odds, and Rending Throw. Fortifying Strikes in particular can be interchanged between any of the above for sustain reasons, but it's up to you on where you want to place it here. So let's talk about Rending Throw a little bit. As I stated before, Rending Throw can gain 20% damage on a target to all party members as a debuff. To start out, the description reads 110% weapon damage as well as 10% rend for 4 seconds. This should give you plenty of time to pull out your bow, light attack, penetrating shot, and apply bleed through rain of arrows. A little bit further down the line, you will find that debuffs in general, keeping them up will increase damage significantly, so pay attention to when they are up and when you need to reapply them. From levels 9 to 12, you'll be finishing off all of the Berserk passives and gaining Aggressive Approach under Raging Torrent. With hitting level 12, you'll be able to gather the ultimate for Berserk, Defy Death, which gives you a 4-second immortality every 60 seconds. This is detailed as not to be attached with Berserk or popping Berserk, so pay attention to your cooldowns as this is a global cooldown. I would not be surprised if this doesn't even make it into beta. It's insane. Closing out levels 13 to 19, you'll be finding passives that keep your debuffs and damage up consistently. Level 13, we have Final Blow, then to Enraged Strikes, Targeted Impact, Opportunistic, Exploitation, Second Wind, and Critical Throw to round out the end of the Hatchet tree. Now let's get into the main DPS within this build, the bow and arrow. We'll be utilizing the bow's optimal on-hit crit damage, the bleeds that come from rain of arrows, as well as utilizing heavy headshot attacks for your opening shot procs, and continuing damage using that bleed for dots, as well as light attacks to continue damage throughout the fight. If you find yourself missing a lot of arrows, don't worry, be patient. It takes a little bit of time to understand the lead that comes within shooting, right? So take your time, be consistent, and if you need to, I would recommend holding the bow a little bit longer than you would expect, because sometimes it's easier to flick onto a target rather than anticipate your lead. Also, utilize the bow for its passive haste to bait attacks, dodge, and then let loose with everything that you've got. So starting off, from levels 1 to 3, you'll be gathering Penetrating Shot, Evasion Tactics, and Rain of Arrows. This is about 2/3 of the main rotation to get damage out of your bow. Stamina will be used as a motivation to deal damage rather than evading attacks. This will be especially important at endgame when you have weapon gems that will allow your damage to go up as your stamina goes down. So moving on to levels 4 through 6, you'll be grabbing Barbed Arrows, Blood-Soaked Arrow, and Rapid Shot. With Blood-Soaked Arrow, this will now allow Penetrating Shot to deal an extra 10% damage per target it passes through, up to 50%. So make sure to kite and stack up those mobs for the full effect. As well, Rapid Shot is the third and final skill in your bar to be using, so don't forget about using this at the end of your full rotation. With this being the final skill, we will now go into passives that will give you crit chance, crit damage, on-hit damage, opening shots, a bunch of utility to make sure that your damage is on point and at the top of the charts. With levels 7 through 10, you'll be starting out with Rapid Accuracy, Aim True, Opening Strike, and Long Range. Adding Rapid Accuracy first will allow Rapid Shot, once you hit all 3 shots, to gain extra CDR and get this skill back as fast as possible. So if you end up missing a few shots, it's okay, it's fine, it'll come back, but make sure, again, to miss your second shot if possible so that you can land your last arrow, which will deal extra 125% damage as well as knockback. Rounding out levels 8 through 10 with Aim True, Opening Strike, and Long Range, this will give you a ton of upfront damage with opening heavy shots, so make sure to hold that bow and aim for the head for that huge on-hit crit. You'll also gain 70% more damage to any opening shot that you hit with all of these skills, so make sure to get them as soon as possible. Moving on to levels 11 through 14, you'll be gathering Closing In, Dodge and Weave, Deep Strikes, and Finishing Shot. Closing In is huge for mid-game as it drives down your CDs like crazy during expedition bosses and elite enemies. Dodge and Weave allows you to gain mobility when utilizing the roll for kiting and running, as well as providing more DPS via evasion tactics and weapon gems. So make sure to get this. By adding Deep Strikes, this gives Penetrating Shot some more punch with an extra 20% more damage, and continuing on with Finishing Shot, you gain 20% damage to foes under 50%, which offers a huge bonus to every single source of DPS that you have within the bow. To finish off the bow and arrow, with levels 15 through 19, you'll be starting off with Final Blow, into the ultimate Concussion, into Bullseye, then Archer's Speed, and Mark. With Final Blow, this is the last reason for you to land that third and final shot from Rapid Shot. It adds an additional 25% more damage to that last shot, so make sure that you're hitting it. This now leads you in to unlocking your final form and your ultimate of the Hunter Tree, Concussion. This adds an additional 20% to all headshots with a chance to refund an arrow on hit. Next comes a little bit of the sprinkles. With a Bullseye, you gain 10% crit chance with any bow attack or ability. Adding on, you'll be gaining a little bit of haste from Archer's Speed, so you get that 20% haste when you swap to your bow. And then now comes the cherry on top. You gain Mark, which allows for 10% damage to all foes that have a debuff. Altogether, this is what makes this tree and this weapon in general a huge proponent for dealing damage consistently. Now that we've finished both of the weapon trees, let's go into a little bit more detail on how you'll be utilizing these attributes, skills, and options that you have to gain and deal the most damage that you can in the shortest amount of time. With mobs, you want to open up with your heavy attack headshots into a penetrating shot, a light attack, a rapid shot, and then finishing it off with rain of arrows and potentially rending throw headshots that allow for rend or bleeds to continue that debuff for your damage to increase. But most of the time, depending on the mobs you'll be dealing with, you won't even need to land rain of arrows or that rending throw headshot, as it will potentially be dead with rapid shot or even that light attack. With mid-level bosses and expeditions as well as elites, we'll be opening up with heavy headshot attacks, a rain of arrows, a penetrating shot for that quick reload, a light attack, a rapid shot, another light attack, a rending throw headshot for that rend buff, and then also repeating back to that light attack and restarting this rotation. As fights continue, prioritize your rending throw, as this is the main opportunity for all party members as well as yourself to gain 20% of that damage onto the target. Then focus on bleeds from rain of arrows. With bosses and elites at 30% HP, you're going to want to get up close and personal with that Hatchet, starting off with rending throw, berserk, raging torrent, a light attack to gain 125% at the end of raging torrent, and then finishing it off with a light combo to then repeat back to the beginning. I would strongly recommend, obviously as a DPS, that you stay behind your target, as this will allow for crits and your damage in general to rise as you gain backstab potential, making sure that any boss or elite will be burned down as fast as possible. So with this all said and done, let's do a little bit of a recap and add some tips that might help you out throughout leveling, endgame, and any sort of situation you find yourself in within the world of Eternum. So wrapping things up, As you could see, you want high mobility within this build to get out of any situation you get yourself into. You want affixes and suffixes that reduce cooldowns from dodging, as well as other sources that will be available to you, as well as affixes and suffixes on weapons that will increase your damage over time, as well as on hit through crit. Continuing this, with any enemy that hits under 30% health, make sure you are utilizing your Hatchet to deal the most damage possible up front to burn them down as fast as you can. Another affix or suffix that you can look for within gear and weapons is luck. Luck provides an additional bonus to any drop within the world of Eternum, so make sure you find it if you are looking for specific gear at lower level or at higher level when you will be grinding elite mobs and expeditions for your gear at endgame. And to finish things off, jewelry is a huge proponent to any build within Eternum. If you cannot find the materials yourself or craft it yourself, make sure to look on the trade posts. Though it may be a little pricey, this is one of the only sources for you to find materials, gear, items, anything within Eternum that you cannot find yourself. Additionally, if you have a company in mind and you join and you have the option for crafting, make sure to reach out to your GM or anyone that has the ability to craft what you need and to tip them as well, because some of these materials that you can't find yourself are going to be pretty pricey at start. And that's it for now. Make sure you check out any build that I do within the studio loot. It's a great source to find anything that you need and want within Eternum. No, again, I am not sponsored. I just love their products and they're doing a great job covering anything that New World has to offer. This is also one of the first videos that I've done on YouTube in a while, and Eternum and New World in general has gotten me super hyped to get into content creation again, so look out for more content coming soon. Also, I'll be streaming this on Twitch the day of the beta immediately when it drops, so stay tuned for that, as I and my company Eternity will be rushing to gain access to owning settlements and territories around Eternum. It'll be a fun time, it'll be crazy, it'll be insane. So make sure to look out for that coming soon, July 20th. Be there or be fucking square, baby.